quantitative trading firm Alameda Research is leading a $40 million round to create the Robinhood of decentralized finance. That is a prime brokerage called Oxygen that will make investing in DeFi more accessible and user-friendly to the masses. Joining us now to discuss is Sam Bankman-Fried, CEO of Alameda Research, as well as crypto exchange FTX in Hong Kong. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you, Sam. Sam, you don't sleep. When you do, it's on a beanbag with roommates around. You run two major crypto firms with billions in volume and assets under management, and now looking to open your third. You're 28 years old. First of all, get some sleep. And second of all, tell us your vision for this new project you have ahead.
We'll see about that first one. But on the second topic, you know, one of the dominant trends of 2020 in crypto, but really just in the world, was massive growth in demand for retail financial access. And, you know, Robinhood was maybe company of the year from a sort of, you know, global recognition standpoint. And, you know, we're seeing that continue. Robinhood itself obviously has had a little bit of a tough 2021 so far. But, you know, that just means there's all the more demand for, you know, better and newer ways for people to access, you know, financial investing and trading, especially in a convenient mobile-first world. And so I think that that's, you know, something that we're looking to target from a few different angles. And one of the big ones, which you brought up, is Oxygen. It's a, you know, it's a decentralized, you know, you can call it decentralized prime brokerage. You can call it sort of an extension of borrow lending. But basically what it is, you know, build as comprehensive of a financial suite as you can on chain, and then build a really easy access point to it for millions of users. And so the Maps.me application, which has, you know, north of 100 million downloads, is going to be adding that in, you know, for all of its users over the rest of the year. So really excited to see those roll out. And it mirrors something that we've been doing on the FTX side as well, with, you know, rolling out trading and investing through Blockfolio.
So one of the dangers of Robinhood is that exactly kind of what you just said. It's a very easy on-ramp to something that actually is quite complicated behind the scenes. And that's been one of the criticisms, right? Is that people are sort of coming and they're trading and they're getting it over their heads because it has like this sort of video game-like feel. Is there any danger that your project will actually have that even magnified because DeFi is even more complicated and you'll kind of have these new users coming in and have this like really easy, accessible platform, but not actually know what they're investing in and, you know, find themselves facing big losses? And how do you manage that risk?
Right, totally hear you. And I mean, you know, that is always a worry. And I think that there's a fine line between an investing app which is really well designed and one that's just so well designed that it becomes, you know, source of enjoyment, you know, outside of the financial aspect. And certainly you've seen COVID heighten that with, you know, frankly, a lot of people bored at home. And you know, I think that like the biggest pieces of this, and this is something that's been beat into our head again and again and again over the last few years, is always making it, especially just looking at sort of, you know, the access points people have, making it as intuitive as possible what's going on, and making the explainers as clear as possible. One of the things that I think we found, which was sort of surprising, is, you know, one thing you could do is take a product and put a ton of like disclaimers in front of it, have pop-ups that say, hey, warning, this is like a weird product. Here's a quiz you have to take to be able to use it. You know, please read this article, then answer these questions, then click this button. And, you know, and those are the sorts of things which our instinct was like, that's a terrible user experience. Like, you got to do it when you got to do it. But like, boy, like, is that going to be a turnoff for the product? And we were just totally wrong. People love that. And this sort of fit a broader trend of our users, by and large, have really, really appreciated when we put more educational material, more explainers on the products, and just show as much as we can about what's going on, both in front of them and behind the scenes. And, you know, there are certainly a lot of users that just want things abstracted away as much as possible, but a surprising number of people actually want to have access to as much information as they can at their fingertips, and as much, you know, explanation and help as they can. And as especially we get to a world where social media, frankly, is playing an enormous role. Um, you know, it's what people say online about these things is going to matter an enormous amount. And all you have to do is look at the Apple Store ratings of the Robinhood app and what happened to them over the first few months of 2021 to see that.
And Sam, I want to get to the maps component in a bit, but one question I have, of course, given today's news, you guys have an exchange token. It's the valuation is somewhere around $3 billion or so. BNB's is about $40 billion. So are owners getting anything akin to equity? And how much should Coinbase be valued, given what we see in the exchange token market? Does $100 billion sound like too much or too little? Where do you fall on that? And how does it compare with your exchange token?
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, you won't be shocked to hear that that's a conversation we've had a lot internally recently. And I guess addressing the first point. Oh,
are you looking to go public?
We'd be crazy not to be looking into what that would entail. It's not something that I sort of see imminently, but it's, I think a lot of players in the crypto space right now are at least trying to understand what's involved in that process. And I think that the Coinbase valuation is certainly one driver of that. The FTT holders are not getting equity. They're not getting any management. It was a way to give people some involvement in the FTX ecosystem in a way that was easy and a way that, frankly, works a lot better for global users of the platform than NASDAQ does. But it's obviously a lot less accessible for a different class of investors, and in particular for U.S. financial institutions. And so when I look at the valuations, it's interesting. So one thing is, you guys talked about Coinbase's financials for 2020, and they're sort of an interesting set of financials. And, I think on the back of that, you would maybe project a 20 billion valuation or something. I'm making that up, right? But if you say, look, it's a fintech company, it's got, was it 1.3 of revenue, 300 of profit, maybe that's sort of, it's sort of DraftKings space of numbers. And I think you would put it maybe in the 20 range, but I don't know. I don't know if you have their early 2021 financials, if you've seen what's happened in January and February, and I obviously don't have their financials, but some of their numbers are public. It might be quite a bit higher. And so, I'd be super interested to see what they're projecting this year. Volume's up a lot. And it's going to be really interesting to see what numbers they release about those, because they have a really weird business model. If you haven't seen it before, it's FTX's business model, totally transparent. We make about 2 basis points on our trades. Sometimes it's 1.5, sometimes it's 3, whatever. And you can just our volume's public. Okay, you're already 80% of the way there. Coinbase does not do that. Coinbase makes, I'm ballparking, 10 basis points, 1/10% on all trades on their website. They make at least 10 times that on their mobile app. Their mobile app charges really egregious fees. They charge $1 on every trade, even if it's a $7 trade. So when you look at their growth this year and what valuation that should imply, the really core underlying question is how much of that growth is them charging 5% to retail users on their mobile app, and how much is that them charging 5 basis points to market makers on their on their exchange, and you can't tell that apart just by looking at their headline volume numbers. So really interested to see how that revenue comes in. And I think if it comes in at massively higher than what you saw in 2020, then look, 100 billion is not crazy. I think if it were coming in at 2020 levels, yeah, that seems crazy. With the one last caveat that, Tesla builds great electric cars, but they have an even better product, which is the TSLA stock. And boy, is that something there's a lot of demand for right now. I think Coinbase is probably looking at markets and thinking they might have a shot. Well-known U.S. crypto exchange goes public 2021. It's a pretty good environment for it.
Can you just tell us a little bit about FTX's user base? My understanding is that you're quite popular in China. What percentage of your users, just ballpark, would you say come from mainland China?
Yeah, I think it's so if you weight by number of users, you get pretty weird results. It's easy to run a campaign where you pay people a little deposit bonus for signing up, and then you like pretty quickly just have another 20,000 users who are never going to use your platform. So you get wacky things if you do that. But if you weight by volume, which is I think like the right thing to do. And I'm going to throw out some companies where it's a little bit hard to classify their country. You have people with employees in one country, a headquarters in another, and corporation in a third, and they're sort of global. Greater China, I think it's one of the large regions, but it's not a dominant one. It's under 50%, and so we're not nearly as China heavy as Huobi, OKEX, or Binance are. We're also obviously not nearly as Western heavy as like Coinbase is. We sort of straddle the line there.
Hey, so Sam, just getting real quick back on the issue of the maps, the integration.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little more about, exactly how do you guys integrate maps with DeFi? DeFi is as far from geolocation as you could possibly get. So
right.
This is old technology and new technology, right? So what are you guys doing?
Yeah, so there's sort of, I would say, three core integrations here. One of them, which is I think a big one, but kind of like the dumb, automatic one, is like, I don't know, they both have users. But let's put that aside for a sec, although not quite forget about it. The two big ways that actually has some synergy there. One of them is that Maps.me in particular has a lot of global travelers. It's much less like, oh, do you remember the name of that restaurant that opened up 3 blocks away? And it's much more used for people, people from France who are vacationing in Italy. And because of this, there's a lot of cross-border payments that are not running through the app, but are originated by it. Things like going to book train tickets, book hotel stays, and frankly, like pay for things in a foreign country. And, payments in general are a pretty ugly area of the world right now. You lose 5% immediately. And that's if you're lucky to a credit card. If you're going cross-border and using a booking website, that gets up to 20-30% of the actual, revenue that the hotel ultimately sees that goes to these middlemen in the way. And that's a pretty big loss, and it can be a big hassle. I mean, banks are not always cooperative here. So there's a pretty big area to just improve the global payments infrastructure and to not have to make people leave the app and go to 4 different apps, to serve, they go to their like banking app, and then they go to some booking app and some currency conversion app, and instead just have it, one click all within the app, built-in payments. And then this leads into the sort of the other side of this, which is, in addition, when you already have payments there and you already have users putting assets on the app, people want yield on them. And one thing crypto has shown is it can give a lot higher yield than people can give, than banks are giving right now. And so, it allows people to keep assets there, get yield lending out in DeFi in the meantime, and then use it for payments when they're traveling. And that's sort of like the core integrated use case there. And then you sort of branch out into, okay, well, restaurants could advertise themselves there. They could connect to customers directly through the app, and it ultimately serving as a really nice medium for anything which wants to be deployed in that process.
Just one last question quickly, if you could. You say that you practice effective altruism, so you live off whatever living expenses, take the profits of the company, but you give the rest to charity. You gave to the President Biden during his presidential campaign, the second largest donation of that campaign. What is your next big give?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the truth is, I don't know. There's a lot of things that I'm looking into right now. There are some things in everything from, global health, especially, emerging market diseases, some things in animal welfare, some things in AI, some things in politics. And, but, there's a lot of money sloshing around doing sort of random things in the world in charity. What there's very little of is kind of like strategically deployed reserves trying to figure out what the most important thing at any given point in time is. And especially if that thing is not necessarily like whatever the Red Cross has most recently tweeted about, which does generally raise quite a bit. And so, we'll see over this next year what comes up. I've been surprised before about what did, but if I had to just wager a guess, I would say emerging world health, animal welfare, or AI safety related charities.
Fantastic.
Would be
we hear a lot
guesses.
about crypto bros throwing lavish parties and spending it on Lambos, but it's nice to hear you're thinking about some charities and things outside.
We certainly blow our own mini fortune on LaCroix every day, so I don't know if it's.
I enjoy the occasional sparkling water too. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.